I always believed hard work could fix anything. That no matter what was happening around me, I could study, focus, and succeed my way out of it. That's what I told myself every time my stepmom belittled me, every time she rolled her eyes at my dreams, or called me too dramatic when I cried after college rejections started rolling in. My name is Kayla Miller. I'm 18 years, and this is the story of how I found out my stepmom hid the biggest letter of my life, and how I stood on a graduation stage with her empty seat glaring back at me. It started about a year ago during senior year. I was working my tail off, late nights, studying, weekends, volunteering, every assignment triple checked. I wasn't just aiming for straight A's. I wanted to be valedictorian, and I wanted to get into Columbia University. My dream since I was 12 years old and watched a video about their creative writing program. But while I had ambition, I didn't have much support at home. My dad remarried when I was 13. At first I tried to like her, Janice. She acted nice in front of him, but behind closed doors, things were different. Cold silences, passive-aggressive comments, sometimes outright dismissive. She'd laugh when I mentioned Columbia, like it was a fantasy. "You're smart, Kayla," she'd say with that fake sweet tone. "But let's be real. Ivy Leagues don't take charity kids." Yeah. That one stuck. She didn't like that my mom passed away when I was 10, and that my dad never stopped talking about her. Janice pretended to care, but every time I achieved something, she acted like it was a threat, like I was competing with her for space in his heart. Maybe I was. I don't know. I just know she didn't want me to shine. Still, I kept grinding. My GPA stayed perfect. I was president of the debate club, editor of the school paper, and I even won a statewide essay competition. My teachers supported me, my friends cheered me on, but at home, silence. Then came the college applications. I applied to 10 schools, but Columbia was my top choice. I poured everything into that application: personal essay, letters of recommendation, test scores, and when I hit submit, I cried, because I knew I had done everything I possibly could. March came, decision season. Some of my friends were already getting acceptances. My inbox, crickets. Every day, I checked the mail, checked my email, nothing. Columbia decisions had gone out. My heart sank. Janice made it worse. "Ah," she said one morning, sipping her coffee. "Still no letter? I guess they found someone better." I locked myself in my room after that. I didn't come out until dinner. My dad was clueless. He worked late most nights and trusted Janice to manage things. That's what he called it, man. By April, I had offers from some good schools: UCLA, NYU, Boston University, but not Columbia. I told myself it wasn't meant to be. Still, something felt off. Then, graduation season started. I got the email from my principal. I'd been named valedictorian. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before I let myself believe it. I cried, happy tears. I had done it. Despite everything, despite feeling invisible in my own house, I did it. But when I told Janice, her face froze. "That great," she said flatly. "Guess it pays to be a brown noser." That night, I overheard her talking to my dad in the kitchen. "She's getting too full of herself," she whispered. "You're letting her act like she's queen of the house." And that's when I knew. She didn't just dislike me. She resented me. Still, I poured my energy into writing the valedictorian speech. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted every kid sitting in those folding chairs on that football field to feel like they mattered, like they weren't defined by where they came from or what people thought they could do. The night before graduation, I went into the garage to grab a box of old decorations for my cap. As I moved things around, I noticed a stack of opened mail shoved behind a paint can. At first I thought it was just junk. Then I saw it. A white envelope. Columbia University. Addressed to me. Torn open. I froze. My whole body went cold. I ripped it fully open and pulled out the letter. "Congratulations, Kayla Miller." I didn't read the rest. I couldn't. My hands were shaking. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. She had hidden it. She had taken the one thing I had worked for, dreamed of, and decided I didn't deserve to know. I stormed into the house. She was in the kitchen, scrolling her phone. "You opened my Columbia letter?" I demanded. She looked up slowly. Didn't even flinch. I didn't think it was important. You didn't think my dream school was important. Her lips tightened. You're too emotional, Kayla. You would have made a big scene. I was trying to protect you. From what? Hope? She stood and shrugged. From disappointment. You don't belong there. And frankly, I didn't want you wasting your dad's money. That was it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked past her. I went upstairs. And I packed everything I needed for the next day. My cap. My gown. My speech. The letter. And I made one more decision. I wasn't going to save her a seat. Graduation morning was clear and warm. My friends hugged me. Teachers smiled. My dad waved from the crowd, confused by the empty chair next to him. When my name was called and I stepped up to the podium, I took a deep breath. I looked out at the sea of faces. The parents, the students, the teachers who had watched me grow. And I spoke. Good morning. My name is Kayla Miller, and I'm honored to be your valedictorian. I want to talk about what it means to believe in yourself, even when others don't. I told the truth. Not names, not drama, but I spoke about the people who try to hold us back. The ones who say we're not enough. The ones who tell us to shrink, to stay quiet, to aim lower. And then I held up the letter. I found this last night, I said. It was hidden from me. Someone decided I didn't need to know that I got into my dream school. But here's the thing. No one gets to control your story but you. The crowd erupted. My dad stood up, his eyes wide, and I could tell he finally understood. Janice never showed. She wasn't there when I threw my cap in the air. She wasn't there when Columbia's orientation packet arrived 2 weeks later. She wasn't there when I packed my bags. But you know what? I was, and that's all I needed. I thought standing on that graduation stage would be the hardest part. But it turns out, the real storm hit after. After the speech. After the clapping. After I walked off the podium with my head held high and a folded letter still trembling in my hand. I could feel it coming. The weight of it. I didn't even make it halfway through the post-ceremony photos before my dad found me. He looked confused, hurt, and honestly, a little scared. Kayla, he said, walking up fast, pulling me aside near the bleacher. What letter were you talking about in your speech? Columbia? I nodded, chest tight. Yeah, I got in, back in March. But you never told me, he said, eyes darting. Janice said. She hid it. I interrupted, holding up the envelope. I found it yesterday, in the garage. Already opened. His face dropped. No, he whispered. She wouldn't. She did. My voice was low, steady. She said I didn't belong there. That it was a waste of your money. He looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. He sat down hard on a nearby bench, running a hand over his face. I'm so sorry, Kayla, he said after a moment, his voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear. If I had, I know, I said quietly. And I meant, for all his flaws, his distance, his cluelessness. I knew he wasn't cruel. He just wasn't paying attention, but now he was. That night was tense. We rode home in silence. Janice was already there, pretending like nothing had happened. She tried to congratulate me, but my dad shut it down instantly. Don't, he said sharply. Just don't. And for the first time since she married my dad, Janice looked nervous. They fought, loud, long. I stayed upstairs and packed my things. I already knew what I was going to do. I was leaving sooner than planned. The next morning, I moved in with my mom's sister, Aunt Rachel. She had always offered, always said her door was open if I ever needed space. I needed it now. You're not going back? She asked gently, as she helped me set up in her guest room. No, I said. Not even to visit. She nodded like she understood everything without me having to explain. She probably did. Over the next few weeks, things started falling into place. Columbia resent my welcome packet. I scheduled my orientation. I filed a formal report with the school about my living situation, and they fast-tracked me for on-campus housing. I even got a summer internship through the university, helping with social media content for the journalism department. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe, but I wasn't done. See, the thing about lies is, they don't just disappear, they leave holes. And eventually, someone's going to ask what fell through. A few weeks later, my dad called. I need to see you, he said. Please. We met at a cafe near Aunt Rachel's place. I didn't know what to expect. But he came in looking like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. He ordered a coffee, didn't touch it. I asked her to leave, he said quietly. My eyebrows lifted. Janice? He nodded. I found out she's been hiding things for a while. Not just your letter, your essay awards, your scholarship mail, even messages from your counselor. He shook his head, disgusted. She had a drawer in her sewing room, full of your stuff, things I never saw. I felt sick, but I wasn't surprised. She didn't want me to have a future, I said flatly. Not one she couldn't control. My dad looked up at me, eyes wet. I don't know how I let it get that bad. I should have protected you. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. We sat there in silence for a while. Finally, he slid an envelope across the table. What's this? I asked. Something I should have done years ago, he said. It's your mom's life insurance. I held on to it for your college fund. But Janice didn't want you to know it existed. I think that's why she tried to sabotage everything. I opened it slowly. It was a certified check, enough to cover tuition for a year, maybe more, with my scholarship. For the first time, I felt like I was standing on my own 2 feet. No strings attached. No one to steal my dreams out from under me. Fast forward to August. I'm in New York City now. Columbia is everything I hoped it would be. And more. The buildings, the history, the lectures that make my brain feel alive again. I walk past Low Library every morning with a fresh cup of coffee and a notebook in hand. I feel like I belong. My roommate Deja is a force of nature, smart, sarcastic, hilarious. She took one look at my books on the first day and said, "Oh, you're intense. I like it." We became fast friends. I told her about Janice, about the letter, about the speech, and Deja, who doesn't sugarcoat anything, just said, "You won. That speech? That stage? That silence she had to sit in? You already got your justice." She's right. But something else happened too. One of my professors, a visiting author, read my valedictorian speech. I had submitted it for a freshman writing workshop. He pulled me aside after class and said, "Kayla, you have a voice. Have you ever considered turning this into something more?" I blinked. Like, what? A blog? He laughed. A book. I still get chills thinking about it. We're working on a concept now. A non-fiction collection of essays. About growing up muted. About finding your voice. About how silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the space before truth explodes. One day I got an email from Janice. It was short. "I heard about your speech. I guess you really did get in. I hope you're happy now." Janice. I stared at it for a minute. Then I deleted it. No reply. No emotion. Just peace. Because I was done letting her take up space in my mind. A few weeks ago, I visited my high school to speak at a workshop for current seniors. It felt surreal, walking those same hallways, but this time, with purpose. With confidence. I stood in front of a group of students who were just like I was, unsure, overworked, some even ignored at home, and I told them what I wish someone had told me earlier. Your future is not a gift from anyone. It's something you earn, and something you protect. Even if the people around you try to block the door, you kick it open. You walk through it anyway. They clapped. A few even cried. And for once, I believed every word coming out of my mouth. I don't know where Janice is now. My dad says she moved in with her sister. She left most of her stuff behind, even a pair of heels I used to get scolded for touching. But I don't care. Because I'm moving forward. Because I am not just a girl who got into Columbia. I am not just a valedictorian. I am not a leftover, or a burden, or a mistake someone tried to hide in a drawer. I am Kayla Miller, and I have more to say. I used to think closure meant getting an apology, a confession, a breakdown, maybe even a courtroom moment. But now I know, sometimes closure means you move on, while the other person stays stuck exactly where they are. That's what happened with Janice. After she sent that one-line email, I never heard from her again. No more messages, no apology, not even a fake one. But I didn't need it anymore. Because my life had finally started moving. And this time, I was in control. It's been 5 months since I started school at Columbia. Every morning still feels like a small miracle. I grab my coffee from the same corner cart, walk past the big marble steps outside Butler Library, sit in a giant lecture hall filled with people from all over the world. And for the first time in years, I don't feel small. I feel seen. I declared my major last week, English literature and journalism. It felt right. Books raised me. Stories saved me. Now, I want to write stories that might save someone else. Remember that professor who read my valedictorian speech? His name's Dr. Nash. He's a guest lecturer from a publishing house in Boston. After our first meeting, he asked if I'd be interested in turning my speech into a collection of essays. I said yes, terrified. But yes, we've been working on it once a week in the evenings, just spitballing ideas, writing exercises, chapter outlines. He believes in me more than I do some days, but I'm getting there. Last Thursday, Dr. Nash said something I haven't stopped thinking about. You've got a voice people want to hear, Kayla. The question is, what do you need to say? I sat with that question all weekend. It echoed in the back of my mind while I worked my part-time job at the campus bookstore, while I studied in the library, even while I FaceTimed Aunt Rachel, who updates me weekly about her new cat, Biscuit. And then, it hit me. The thing I need to say isn't just about Janice. It's about every time someone told me I was too emotional, too serious, too much. It's about girls like me, girls who are quiet until they explode, who follow the rules until they realize the rules were never made to protect them. That's who I'm writing for. One night, while writing, I remembered something from 10th grade. We had a school talent show. I had signed up to read a short story I'd written, a mystery with a twist ending. I was so proud of it. Janice told me I was being attention-seeking. She said, "No one wants to hear you read. You're not that interesting." I believed her. I backed out. But now, sitting in my dorm room with my laptop open and a city buzzing outside my window, I realize how wrong she was. I am interesting. I always was. I've written 5 essays so far. Each one is about a different moment in my life that made me doubt myself and how I came back stronger. One is about the day I found the Columbia letter. One is about my mom's funeral and how Janice threw away the sympathy cards before I could read them. Another is about the night I gave that speech, hands shaking, and saw my best friend Rachel crying in the front row. I titled that one, "She Didn't Clap, But Everyone Else Did." That's the title of the whole book now. Dr. Nash loves it. He says it's bold. I say it's true. Something else happened this week, and it kind of caught me off guard. A girl from my old high school DM'd me. Her name's Megan. She was a grade below me. Quiet, super smart, always had a book in her hand. She wrote, "Hey Kayla, I just wanted to say I saw your speech on YouTube. I think someone from school uploaded it. I'm going through something similar with my mom's boyfriend. He throws away my college letters. Your story made me feel less alone." I stared at that message for a long time, and then I cried. Because this right here is why I'm writing. This is why I'm telling my story, even when it hurts. I wrote back immediately, told her to talk to her school counselor, gave her my number, told her she is not alone. And for the first time, I realized something. What Janice did to me wasn't just abuse. It was erasure. She tried to erase my future, my confidence, my name. But I took it all back, and now I'm using it to lift someone else. Later that month, Dr. Nash sent my draft essays to a small imprint he works with. I didn't even know he'd done it. He called me on a Tuesday morning. "Kayla," he said, "they want to publish it." I froze. "Wait, what? Your book?" he said, laughing. "They want to publish. We'll get a small advance, and you'll work with an editor. It'll be out next spring." I couldn't believe it. I just sat on my dorm bed, clutching the phone, blinking at the wall like it might vanish. He said more about contracts, timelines, things like royalties, but I only caught bits and pieces. All I could think was, she told me no one would ever want to hear what I had to say. And now, people were going to be reading my words in bookstores. When the official deal went through, I did something bold. I posted a screenshot of the book deal email on my Instagram story. No caption, just the subject line. Offer to publish. She didn't clap, but everyone else did. I knew Janice followed me with a fake account. She always had. Her style was subtle, always watching, never reacting. This time, she saw it. She viewed the story in under 10 minutes. And again, I got an email. "I hope you're happy now. You always were dramatic, but maybe drama sells." I laughed. Not out of bitterness, out of freedom, because it didn't matter anymore what she thought. I didn't need her permission. I had my own. At the book launch the following spring, we had a small reading event at a bookstore in Manhattan. There were maybe 50 people there. Friends, classmates, some professors. And Meg, the girl from my high school. She showed up with her college ID badge clipped proudly to her tote bag. "I made it," she whispered, hugging me. "Because of you." I almost lost it. But I kept it together because I needed to be strong for her. And for all the other girls who were told to sit down and stay quiet. That night, I read the final essay in the book. It was called "I Forgive Her," but I didn't invite her. It was about healing without needing closure, about growing past the people who hurt you, about how sometimes moving on isn't loud, it's silent, like closing a door and never looking back. Afterward, someone asked if I had any regrets, and I said no, because every time she tried to break me, I turned the pieces into something beautiful, and that's the truth. That's my truth, and no one can erase it. Not ever again. I didn't think a small book with a long title would change my life, but it did. She didn't clap, but everyone else did. Didn't just go to print. It caught fire. It wasn't instant, not some viral explosion, but slowly, word spread. A book club picked it up. A professor assigned it in a women's studies class. Then someone posted a quote from it on TikTok. Just a blurry photo of page 122. The woman who called me dramatic had no idea what quiet survival looked like. Suddenly, people were tagging me in videos. Girls in dorm rooms, bathrooms, backyards, crying, talking, sharing their own stories. And I realized I wasn't alone. I never had been. I'd just been isolated. And now I was free. My phone buzzed one morning as I crossed the quad after class. Unknown number. New York area code. "Hello? Hi. Is this Kayla?" Speaking. "This is Dana Walsh. I'm a producer for the Sunday Spotlight on NPR. We've been reading your book in the office. Wondering if you'd be open to a segment interview." I blinked into the sunlight. "Seriously?" She laughed. "Very seriously. It won't be long, just a 15-minute segment. We want to talk about your experience, your voice, and why so many readers are connecting with your story." I said yes, of course, but I hung up and stood frozen on the sidewalk for a full 5 minutes. NPR. People who'd never heard my name were about to hear my voice. A week later, I sat in a radio booth with headphones too big for my head, trying not to breathe too loudly. The host was kind, gentle, warm. We talked about trauma, about writing, about that night on stage when I gave the speech no one expected except me. And near the end, she asked, "If you could go back and say one thing to your stepmom, what would it be?" I didn't hesitate. "I'd say thank you." There was silence on the line. Then she said, "Really?" I nodded. even though she couldn't see. Yes, because she made me doubt myself for so long. I had to learn how to rebuild myself stronger. If she hadn't tried to erase me, I wouldn't have fought so hard to make my story heard. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't even sarcasm. It was the truth. After that segment aired, things snowballed. Emails, invitations, speaking requests. Not all were big, most were from high schools, libraries, or student group. But each time I stood in front of a room and saw eyes looking back at me, I felt that same quiet power I'd found on the graduation stage. I'd been silenced so long, I didn't even recognize my own voice at first. But now, I could fill a room with it, and they listened. One afternoon, I was speaking at a community college panel just outside Boston. It was a cloudy Thursday. I'd worn my best sweater and practiced what I'd say. There were 3 of us on the panel. The moderator asked us to share the moment we realized we deserved better. The other 2 shared powerful stories, one about escaping a toxic friendship, the other about leaving a controlling marriage. When it was my turn, I took a breath and said, my moment came when I stood at the podium during graduation and realized someone who tried to ruin me didn't even have the power to ruin a day. The audience clapped, and then I saw her. In the back row, hair shorter, heavier around the face, a frown that hadn't changed. Janice. I nearly dropped the microphone. I blinked hard, thought maybe I was imagining things, but she stayed seated. Same stiff posture, same crossed arms, same sour energy that used to fill every room in our house. And yet I wasn't afraid. Just surprised. She hadn't clapped. She hadn't even flinched. Just stared. After the panel ended, a line of students came up to talk to me, ask questions, thank me. A few asked for photos. Janice didn't move. I packed my things slowly, heart pounding in a strange rhythm. Half of me wanted to run. The other half, the stronger half, wanted to look her in the eye. She waited until the line ended. Then she approached. Kayla. I turned. Janice. She hesitated. I didn't know you'd be here. Likewise. She looked down at the book in her hand. My book, a dog-eared copy with sticky notes poking out of the sides. I read it, she said, voice flat. And it's very dramatic. There it was again. That word. Like a reflex she'd never unlearned. I smiled. Funny, that's what people say when they don't want to admit something's true. She stiffened. You really think you've done something brave? I looked her in the eye. No, I said. I know I have. Silence stretched. Then she said, you made me the villain. No, I replied. You made choices. I told the truth. Janice looked at me for a long moment, but I didn't feel small this time. I felt tall, grounded, whole. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She turned and walked away without another word. I didn't call after her. I didn't cry. I just stood there, holding my bag and my book and my voice, the one she tried to bury, and I whispered, goodbye. Not to her, to the fear. Back in my dorm that night, I wrote the final chapter for the second edition of the book. My publisher had asked for an update since the first print run sold out. The chapter was titled, The Last Time She Didn't Clap, and it went like this. She came to one of my talks. She didn't clap, but it didn't matter. Because the girl who used to need her approval doesn't anymore. I clapped for myself that night, and it was loud enough for both of us. A month later, my publisher emailed me again. A major retailer wanted to do a display during Women's History Month, featuring books by young authors reclaiming their stories. Mine was going front and center. And when I walked into that bookstore, the one I used to sneak into after school just to read, I saw a giant photo of me next to my book. My real name, my real story, my real power. I asked the stranger to take a photo. She smiled and said, you're the author, right? I saw your quote on Instagram. And I said, yeah, that's me. Sometimes I think about what my mom would say if she saw me now. Not Janice, my real mom. She died when I was 12. Too soon. Too sudden. But I remember how she used to read with me every night, how she always called me her little author, how she kept every story I wrote, even the messy ones. I still have one of those stories in my desk drawer. She knew who I was before the world tried to change me, and I carry her with me, not just in my memories, but in my courage. The last line of my new book says, "I used to beg for someone to believe in me. Now I believe in myself." And that's the loudest applause of all. And this time, even I clapped. I never planned to be a speaker, or a writer, or anything people recognize. In high school, I just wanted to graduate and leave. Leave that house, that silence, that sinking feeling that I didn't matter. But somehow standing in my truth turned into a career, not one I dreamed of, but one I built out of what I survived. And the more I spoke, the more I heard from people who needed to be heard too. One morning I opened an email with the subject line, "Keynote Invite, National Youth Empowerment Conference." I thought it was spam, but it was. It was from a real director, with a real logo, and a real invite. "Kayla, your story has resonated with thousands of young people who've experienced emotional neglect, family betrayal, and academic pressure. We'd be honored if you would deliver the closing keynote this April in Washington." I read it 3 times before I could even breathe. I hadn't spoken to a national audience before. Sure, there had been classrooms, panels, podcast interviews, but this was the real stage. And it wasn't just that I'd be the speaker, it was why they wanted me. Because I had made it out of a house that tried to shrink me. Because I turned a hidden letter into a published book. Because I didn't just survive. I built something out of it. The conference was 3 months away, and I spent every night crafting that speech. I wanted it to be raw, honest, but also hopeful. There were kids out there, maybe sitting in dark bedrooms just like I used to, wondering if anyone would ever listen to them. I needed them to know they weren't invisible, that their voice mattered, even when no one clapped. When April came, I packed the same worn copy of my book in my suitcase, the one I used at every speech, the one with all the underlined parts and sticky notes and smudged corners. My name was printed on the schedule in thick block letters. Closing keynote, Kayla Harris, author of She Didn't Clap, but everyone else did. I stood backstage, my hands cold, heart thudding like a drumline. And I remembered graduation night, that podium, that moment. Only this time, I wasn't scared, because this time, I was expected, wanted, heard. I walked out to applause that actually belonged to me. Not polite claps, not background noise, but people cheering like they already knew me, like I was someone they were rooting for. And I looked out into the crowd, thousands of faces. Young, old, parents, students, survivors. And I said, when I was 17, someone stole my future and hid it in a drawer. What they didn't know was that I'd find it anyway. And when I did, I didn't just go to college. I told the truth, and the truth set me free. I told them about Janice, the lies, the silences, the letter, and how it wasn't just the paper she took. It was the belief that I could be something more. But here's the thing, I said. You can hide a letter, you can even hide a person, but you can't hide the truth forever. Eventually, it speaks. The auditorium was so quiet at one point, I could hear someone sniffle in the front row. When I finished, the standing ovation made me cry. Not because I needed validation, but because I had become proof that the girl no one believed in was worth everything. After the speech, a girl came up to me. She couldn't have been more than 16. Curly hair, braces, hoodie too big for her frame. She handed me a folded piece of paper. "I wrote this last week," she said, "but I didn't think I could say it out loud. So, I'm giving it to you." I opened it later in my hotel room. It was a letter to her mom. It said, "When you told me I was too sensitive, I stopped crying. When you told me I was selfish, I stopped asking. When you told me I was lucky to live in your house, I started dreaming of a place where I didn't feel like a burden." I read it twice, then wrote her back. a handwritten note. You're not a burden. You're a person, and this world needs people like you to stay loud. I gave it to her the next morning. She cried. I cried. And I realized I hadn't just healed my own story. I was helping others write theirs. Back at Columbia, my writing professor introduced me to an editor at a major publishing house. They wanted to turn my story into a young adult adaptation. You've already built the blueprint, he said. Now show other girls how to build their way out. I started writing again, but not as therapy, not as survival, as instruction. A map for girls like me. Then one night, my dad called. We hadn't spoken in almost a year, not since I sent him a signed copy of my book and he never responded. But this time, he said, I read it. I waited. I'm sorry. That was it. No excuses. No awkward laughter. No defense of Janice. Just 3 words I never thought I'd hear. I should have protected you, he added. I said, you still can. Just start showing up now. It wasn't a perfect moment. Or a fix. But it was something. And for once, he didn't hang up first. 1 week later, a small envelope arrived in my dorm mailbox. No return address. Inside was a photo, a picture of me and my real mom from when I was 6. We were in a garden, holding hands, both wearing matching sun hats. On the back, in faded handwriting, for Kayla, you were always going to bloom. I don't know how it found me, but I pressed it to my chest and cried like the kid I used to be. The kid who thought maybe no one saw her. Turns out, someone always had. I taped that photo above my writing desk. Every time I look at it, I remember where I came from, not the pain, but the power I built because of it. And every time I speak, or sign a book, or answer a message from a girl still stuck in someone else's house, I remember why I started. Not for revenge, not even for recognition, but because truth has gravity. And once you say it out loud, it pulls the right people toward you. I always thought closure would come like a slam, a door shutting so hard it shook the frame, a loud goodbye, maybe a scream, something final. But in the real world, closure is quieter. It sneaks in like a whisper, usually when you're too busy living to notice. That's what happened with Janice. I didn't plan it. I didn't chase it. It just showed up. I was back in my hometown for a book signing. Small indie bookstore downtown, tucked between a bakery and an old church. I hadn't been back since graduation. The streets looked the same. My old school still had the cracked steps out front. The diner still had that faded, open sign buzzing in the window. I told myself I was just there for the event. Sign books, say a few words, leave. But deep down, I knew this trip held more weight. It was a full circle moment, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The bookstore was packed. Rows of teenagers, a few teachers, even 2 librarians from my middle school, who I hadn't seen in years. I sat behind a little folding table with a name card that said Kayla Harris. Every time someone handed me a copy of my book, I smiled and said, "Thank you for reading." One girl whispered, "My stepmom threw away my journal. I thought I was crazy for being mad. But your book made me feel not so alone." Another girl asked if I could sign hers to someone who never stopped writing. I did, and tried not to cry. About an hour in, I looked up to find my father standing at the back of the line. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not old exactly, but quieter somehow. He waited until everyone else had left. When he finally stepped forward, he handed me a worn copy of my book. It had tabs sticking out of it, dog-eared corners, highlighter marks, a few notes in the margins. He said, I read every word twice. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Then he added, Janice read it too. I froze. I hadn't heard her name in over 2 years. He looked at me like he was scared of my reaction. She didn't expect you to tell the truth, he said. But you did, and I think that's why she left. Wait, what? She left? He nodded. 6 months ago. No note. Just packed up and moved to her sister's in Ohio. I sat back in my chair, trying to process that. I thought I'd feel something. Relief? Victory? But honestly, I just felt tired. Because Janice leaving didn't fix anything. It didn't erase the years of silence, or the drawer with my letter in it. But maybe it meant she couldn't outrun the truth anymore. Later that night, I walked to the old park near our neighborhood. I used to come here to write. Or just cry where no one could hear me. The swings were still there. So I sat, rocked gently, tried to breathe. And that's when I heard someone call my name. A voice I'd know anywhere. Even after all this time. Kayla? I turned. Janice stood near the path, holding a coffee cup, looking exactly the same and yet somehow completely different. Hair in a neat ponytail. Same tight smile, but something about her looked cracked. She didn't walk closer, just stood there. I thought I might see you here, she said. I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to start a conversation with someone who tried to erase me. She took a small step forward. I read your book. Still I said nothing. She nodded slowly, as if that silence was the answer she expected. I deserve every word, she said, even the ones that hurt. That caught me off guard. I narrowed my eyes. Why did you do it? She looked down. I told myself it was to protect you, that you weren't ready, that Columbia would chew you up, that your dad would pick you over me if he knew the truth. Then she looked back at me. But really? I think I just didn't like how bright you were. I blinked. That was the first time she had ever admitted it, all those years. And now the truth sat between us like shattered glass. I wanted to be the important one, she said. The center. And you made me feel invisible. So I tried to shrink you. My throat burned, but I kept my voice steady. You didn't just shrink me, I said. You almost made me disappear. I know. Silence stretched between us again. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, she added. I don't deserve that. But I wanted to say it out loud. At least once. I stood from the swing. You didn't get to decide who I became. You slowed me down. But you didn't stop me. She nodded. I know. And with that, she walked away. No hugs. No apology that fixed it all. But for the first time, she didn't turn her back on the truth. And for the first time, I didn't need her approval. The next morning, I drove past the old house. Someone else lives there now. The yard looks nicer. The door is painted blue. I didn't feel sad or angry, just distant. Like that life belonged to someone I used to know. Back in New York, I started working on my next book. This one isn't about Janice, or my dad, or the past. It's about the future, about the way young girls rebuild themselves after someone tries to bury them. It's called The Room She Couldn't Lock. And this time, I'm not writing it for closure. I'm writing it for the girl I saw in the bookstore and the hundreds more who still think they're too small to matter. They're not. And if no one saves them a seat, they can take the whole damn stage, just like I did. Sometimes, the people who try to bury you don't expect you to grow roots. They just hope you stay quiet, invisible. But I did. And now, I'm not just writing stories. I'm helping others find the courage to write theirs. It's been 4 years since graduation, 3 since my book came out, and 2 since Janice told me the truth in that small town park. Life's changed a lot since then. I graduated from Columbia with honors. I've spoken at high schools, women's shelters, writing workshops, places full of girls like I used to be afraid to speak, terrified to be seen. But one moment stands above them all. The day I got invited back to my old high school to give the commencement speech. At first, I didn't want to go. I wasn't sure I could face the place where I lost so much of myself, but something deeper said yes. Because this time, I wouldn't be standing alone in front of a crowd, trembling and afraid. This time, I'd be holding the microphone and my own story in my hand. I walked onto the same stage where I gave my valedictorian speech 4 years ago, only now there was no Janice watching from the back, no fear of being interrupted, no fear of my voice cracking, just me, the real me, dressed in a deep navy dress, hair up, a silver pendant around my neck. Not for fashion. It belonged to my mother, my real mother, the woman I barely remember, but who I think about every time I do something brave. Good evening, I said into the mic, smiling at a sea of young faces in graduation caps. I stood on this stage 4 years ago. I had just found out that someone close to me had been keeping secrets, that someone I trusted had stolen something I worked my whole life for. There was a stillness in the air, a silence that said, "We're listening." I continued. That night, I stood up here and gave my valedictorian speech anyway, without notes, without support, just me, a shaky voice, and a heart full of pain. I took a breath. But something happened that night, something I didn't expect. That speech didn't break me. It opened a door, and I walked through it. I looked out at the crowd, locking eyes with a few students in the front row. You may not know where your story goes from here. You may feel lost, scared. Maybe someone in your life is telling you that you can't, that you're not enough, that you should stay small. I paused, then added, "Ignore them." The students chuckled gently. I smiled back, because one day, the same people who silenced you will hear your voice echo from places they can't reach. After the speech, I stayed for hours. Students wanted selfies, signatures, even hugs. One girl, no older than 17, clutched her notebook like it held her entire life. She said, "I write poems about my mom. She left last year. I haven't read them out loud to anyone yet." I told her, "You don't have to read them out loud today, but promise me, you'll never stop writing them." She nodded, eyes glassy. It's strange how pain connects people like invisible string, pulling strangers together. A few months later, I got an email from that same girl. Her name was Sierra. She sent me a video of her reading one of her poems at a youth open mic. In the subject line, she'd typed, "I finally used my voice." I cried for a long time after that. Not sad tears, not even happy ones. Just the kind that come from knowing you made a crack in the dark and let some light in. Around the same time, I was offered a teaching fellowship at a small liberal arts college in Vermont. Creative writing, full-year program, room to design my own curriculum. My first instinct was panic. What if I'm not a good teacher? What if they don't take me seriously? But then I remembered something one of my professors once told me. If you've lived it, you can teach it. So I said yes, and now I'm standing in front of a new classroom every Monday and Wednesday, guiding young writers through scenes, character arcs, and most importantly, truth. Real, raw truth. The kind that doesn't flinch. On the first day of class, I always tell my students, this is a space where your story matters, even if someone once told you it didn't. I see their shoulders ease when I say that. I see the relief wash over them. Because deep down, we're all just waiting for someone to say, "You belong here." I still think about Janice sometimes, not often. But when I do, it's not with anger. It's not even with sadness. It's more like a distant echo, a reminder of who I used to be, a girl who sat in a silent room, wondering if her dreams were too big. Now I know they weren't. They were exactly the right size. She just tried to put them in the wrong hands. Dad and I talk more now. He sends me photos of his new dog, Charlie, a giant labradoodle that sheds all over his couch. He asks about my classes, my book tour, the poems I've been publishing in small journals. He still doesn't always know the right thing to say, but he tries, and sometimes, trying is enough. As for me, I'm working on my second book. It's not about Janice, not directly. It's about all the quiet girls who get talked over, who are told to be grateful, be nice, be quiet. It's called The Loud Ones, and this time, I'm not writing it from a place of pain. I'm writing it from power. A few weeks ago, I visited my mom's grave. It's in a small cemetery outside Atlanta. Nothing fancy, just a flat stone with her name, Danielle Harris. I brought her flowers, daisies, the kind she used to clip into my hair when I was little, and I told her everything, the speech, the book, the moment I finally forgave someone who never apologized. I told her I was okay, more than okay. I told her I finally knew who I was, not because someone told, but because I told myself, and I believed it. As I left the cemetery, a thought came to me. Maybe closure isn't about doors slamming shut. Maybe it's about opening new ones. The kind you choose for yourself. The kind no one can lock. I turned on my car, rolled down the windows, and played my favorite playlist as I drove away. The sun was setting. The sky was pink and gold, like a painting I'd want to describe in a poem. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt completely free.